I apologize in advance, this video might run long, so what I'm going to do for this video is probably make it a gameplay video, and as such you can just listen to this video in the background without having to watch it if you got other things to do but want to hear this video. But what I'm going to do in this video is talk about the fact that the North American LCS is moving back to a best of one format in 2018, or in other words next season for Season 8. And what I'm going to do in this video, since my channel usually is a discussion-esque video, is talk about the pros and cons of that, while also talking about some of the points that have come up on Reddit, incorporating them into this video. Most likely I can be a little bit more opinionated here, because this video probably isn't going to make it on the front page of Reddit, so don't gotta worry about any Reddit backlash. But I'm actually not going to attack Reddit, so don't actually get too excited in that case. I'm also going to talk about, Papa Smithy and some other people that have come out and said some things about the North America moving back to a best of one. And as such, when I talk about pros and cons, also talk a little bit about cheese picks, because that seems to have come up as a major pro and a con. But first what I'm going to do is actually just explain what a best of one is, and a best of three, which North America currently uses, and then my own opinion kind of first. And I'll start with a best of one. See, in the North American LCS, which is the North American League of Legends professional scene, there's 10 teams currently. And they all used to play when it was a best of one on just Saturday and Sunday from about 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. with, one team playing against another for a total of 5 games, with of course analysis and stuff in between. So it might have ran a total of 6 hours between that, with, some intro stuff, some discussion, and then some outro stuff on the analyst desk and stuff like that. When they moved to a best of 3, 4 of those 6 teams would then play on Friday night from 3 p.m. sometimes till 6 p.m. if the games went fast, or sometimes longer if the games dragged out, and then the remaining 6 teams or 8 teams, depending on how many games they would actually play on Fridays, it varied a little bit, would play Saturday and Sunday, again from noon until about 5 or 6 p.m. depending if the games ran long or not. Now, one of the reasons they moved to a best of 3 series was because Europe also moved to a best of series as well, and the other regions like Korea, who just smashes everybody, was already on a best of 3 series for a while. So it seemed like the idea was to give North American and Europe teams to an extent the ability to be more on an even footing regionally and locally, so they get more practice in and more games in. So when they went to these international tournaments, which play best of 3 series outside of the group stage, it felt a bit more, I don't want to say natural, but just like it felt more like what other teams were doing. So it felt on the same page. Now, one of the Reddit posts that actually made it to the front page was describing that only Reddit actually has a problem with the North American LCS moving back to a best of one, and I disagree with this post, but I'm not calling out this post. I don't hate that person or anything like that, but I severely disagree with that. I don't think this is a Reddit only issue. Firstly, because there have been other people that have talked about and kind of commented on, is this even a good idea? Papa Smithy, for example, mentioning the competitive integrity of the North American LCS teams at international tournaments if they're going to be moving back to a best of one. Now, he wasn't smashing it or bashing it or anything like that, but that's just an example. There have been some people that have made some videos and stuff now about this. Besides me, I'm talking about more prominent people in the community about, what's, North America doing? Are they taking a step backwards? Is this a bad thing? What could be the pros of doing this? And as such, I think this is more of a Reddit issue. And because I think it's more of a Reddit issue, specifically for my own opinion, what I think the issue is more of is not just, oh, this is terrible, North America's never going to win anything internationally again. It's just, for me, feels a little bit odd, because other regions aren't also going back to a best of one. So if every region was going to a best of one, it'd make more sense to me, because it's like, oh, you guys have determined that best of ones are just the better way to play the regular season, period. Like, maybe you've got some data that says players are just getting burnt out playing best of 3s in all regions, and it'd just be easier on those players to then play best of 1s. Then they could fit in more streaming and make more successful side money doing streaming as well as playing professionally, locally, and that way if they're not one of the major teams making it to Worlds or something, they still get some benefit there. No, I'm not really saying anything like that as the point that I'm recording this video. It's just North America. So Korea, who just beats everybody continuously anyway, they're still going to be in a best of 3. Other teams are going to be in a best of 3, and that just seems a little bit off to me. That's it. I'm not even saying it's bad, because I'll mention as a casual viewer that I do like best of 1s better in terms of trying to watch all of the games. I'll get to that a little bit more in the pro section, but I will say there definitely are probably some pros of best of 1s, but that's my initial opinion, is that it just seems kind of weird because no one else is doing it as well. It's just North America, so maybe it seems like it's going to be handicapping North America a little bit. Now, before I get specifically into pros and cons, I will talk about cheese picks, because like I said, that's something that's kind of emerged as a pro and a con, depending on who you ask. And as such, as a pro, some people feel like one of the best things about best of ones is that you have to adapt on the fly. You can't adapt over a series, you have to adapt in the game that's happening then and now. And when you're playing either internationally or whatever, sometimes you have to be able to do that. Someone's gotten crazy fed and you have to worry about stopping them in this game. You can't go, this game's lost, we'll win the next 2 games and win the series that way. No, we gotta, plan around, how do we shut down this champion? What do we do about this champion? Or a certain pick comes out, a cheese pick, like got mid into Zed, and it's like, we gotta find a way how to beat got mid into Zed. We gotta figure out a way to either play against this or play around this. Now, we can't do it later, or else we lose the game, and as such we lose the entire quote-unquote series, because it's just one game. It's a best of one. As a con, some people feel that's exactly why the meta would actually get staler to watch as a viewer, because teams will not take the risk of playing anything that's cheesy, because they don't want to risk losing the one and only game that they're going to be playing that day, because they don't have another series to try and come back and do anything else. And that's kind of debatable. That's why I say people saying it's a pro and a con or a pro or a con. I'll leave that up to you listening right now. For me, I think it's a little bit of mix of both, because for me, I don't watch the pro scene for a certain team to support a certain team. I watch for certain picks. When I was a new player, I tried to watch as much as the North American LCS as possible, because I just wanted to know more about the game and how to get better at the game. And I'll use this to segue into the pros. You get to watch every game. It's one of the things I personally disagreed with Thorin with when they were mentioning, back when Summoning Insight existed, it's one of the things that I disagreed when they mentioned no one tries to watch every game. When I was a newer player, I did try to watch every game, because I wanted to know how I could be playing the game better. And I didn't hate the casters like Reddit sometimes does and doesn't do. I wanted to listen to them explain why certain things in the game were happening, why teams were rotating, why teams were building this on this champion, why teams were doing this, sending a vision here, pushing out this wave, whatever it was. I just wanted to know about it because I was bad at the game, and I still am, but I just wanted to get better at the game by watching people who were better at the game than me. So as such, I actually valued that really highly as a new player. And now, as a not so new player, I don't value it as much. I more so value different picks, or at least exciting picks. And as such, this might be more of a con, so I'll get into a little bit later, but maybe it's a pro. If the meta is diverse enough, then best of ones can also be exciting, because all teams won't probably play the same kind of style. They won't be like, it's just one game, and if we don't win this one game, we could lose the whole series, lose the match point, whatever, so we all gotta play whatever's top tier. If multiple things are viable, it can be exciting. And when I was a new player, I wanted more exciting picks. I like reset champions like Jinx, Katarina, Darius. Kind of hate when Katarina's super meta and super strong to play against a solo queue, but watching those champions, I have a lot of fun watching those champions because they're really fun to watch. When it gets late game and those resets can make or break a game, it's fantastic. So being able to watch all of the games with teams that might be able to take that risk with the cheese picks or whatever, that probably is a pro more so than a con. Which leads into my second pro. There's just less days and less time you have to devote to watching the North American LCS if it's in a best of one. When it's a best of 3, you have to devote Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and large chunks of those days to watching it. And on Friday specifically, if you're not off of work yet, or you're not home from school yet, or you're not home from practice yet, whatever you're doing, you might not be able to catch the first game anyway, and then be stuck to watching the VODs. If you were just going to watch the VODs, you don't need to watch it live anyway, and that would still hurt viewership. Well, with the best of one series, I mean, it's still a reasonable chunk of time, but it's just Saturday, it's just Sunday, and then that's kind of it too. Which is to my final point of the pros anyway, is that viewership. North America's franchising. They want to make it more stable for organizations and sponsors to opt into the North American LCS. So if they make stable viewership, that will probably guarantee stable revenue, and as such they can then better support the teams and organizations within the NA LCS. Not going to say this is 100% law or fact, by the way. This is more like speculating. That could be part of it as well, in which case that is a pro, because as such, the players who might have less time to practice and adapt to what international tournaments will be like, they might still get more support than locally. Again, if they want to pair it with their streaming or whatever, which they will then have more time to do, well then there you go, right? That way, if you never make it to touch the World Summoner Cup for whatever reason, not being able to play like how other teams are playing, you at least will still have a comfortable revenue to fall back on. Now, getting into the pro, or the cons I should say, it could be the fact that less games does mean you don't practice like you're adapting over a series like international tournaments. And I keep saying that like a broken record, but it is one of the main talking points that I see come up, because international teams will just, like, the better teams are going to make it out of groups. So even though groups are a best of one, and I won't ignore that, groups are definitely best of one. So if you can play best of ones very well, theoretically, you should be able to do that in international tournaments and be able to use that to get out of groups. That's great. Well, then what? You're playing against teams no longer in a best of one, who then in their regions play best of threes already, and now you're playing a best of three or a best of five against the better teams that made it out of groups, and it just seems like it might be a handicap. It might not be, ultimately, because I don't know everything. So what I'm saying might not be fact whatsoever. I acknowledge that, by the way. But that just could be a thing. And which leads back to my points that I've made earlier. It just seems weird that other regions aren't also moving to a best of one. And that's one of the major reasons why I see this is talked about as a con. Because, well, if other regions aren't doing it, is it actually even good? Or is there some sort of ulterior motive here? Who knows? One of the things I want to talk about that I've kind of talked about already, but I didn't know if it was a pro or a con that I want to go a little bit more in depth on, is the meta though. Because like I mentioned earlier, I don't have a certain team that I really support. I'm more like, at this point, like watching certain champions or certain picks get played. And one of the cons or pros that I saw come out was that there's a meta, and if it's stale, it's not that fun to watch. It's just the same picks over and over, and then if there's more games and longer series, you're seeing just the same picks over and over still anyway. They're not even like switching up game 1, let's be risky, and then games 2 and 3 will worry about being serious. Usually it's just the same stuff, especially depending on the role. Some roles are a little bit more flexible than others, but some roles aren't. When something's top tier, that's just it. You just see those picks, and you're not seeing anything else, and it's just not fun as a spectator to watch anyway. So like for me, for example, they can move back to a best of one if they want, but if it's just going to be the same 3 picks in a row, especially the roles that I want to watch, I don't care then. So I'm still not going to watch. I'm going to watch when it's more entertaining to watch because of the balance of the game, the state of the game, and the champions in the game. Because as a spectator, I'm trying not to look at it from a player or like a analytically or anything like that. I'm trying to look at it as like a 100% casual viewer. I want to see exciting stuff. I want to see exciting picks, or at least diverse picks. I don't want to see like the same picks all the time. I don't mind that there's going to be certain things that are just going to be top tier, right? In a game with 140 almost champions, I well acknowledge that there's always probably going to be top tier stuff. There's also probably going to be stuff that are just better or more viable than other stuff, and not everything's going to be viable or everything can't be picked all the time. I get that, and I'm not even faulting the balanced team for that. I just want there to be at least a good 5 to 7 champions per role that are at least viable. So if you want to go, we don't want to play the top tier stuff. We want to try something new with this other champion that's completely viable and actually able to do work. We can. And for those that have watched me for a while, they know this is why I like the spring of Season 5, which in a sense, or I guess not ironically, there's a word I'm looking for, but I can't think of it. They were at a best of ones when they were doing this in North America. There were definitely top tier stuff in the AD carry role. You know, you had your Sivers, you had your Old Grays, you had your Lucians. It was more of a burst meta, you want the burst AD carries, but you still saw things like Jinx, Caitlyn, Kog'Maw. You know, the Juggernaut was born in the spring split of Season 5. You saw other picks also come out and still be able to be as successful as those top tier picks, at least in the right hands, because those champions were viable. And maybe it was also because it was a best of one series. You're playing against a team that is weak against a late game team fight, and you're the better late game team fighting team. So you pick a late game team fighting comp, and if you can just survive the mid game, you know you're going to be able to win. Since it's a best of one series, you just need to win the one game in the late game team fight. So maybe that is part of it, and as such a best of one will make more diverse stuff happen in the meta, but maybe not, because maybe teams won't take that risk. And that's why I say this is kind of a pro or a con, also depending who you ask, and why I wanted to go a bit more in depth into it. With my final point being how I'm going to conclude this video, this already way too long video, I'm sorry, is maybe North America is just going to be kind of relegated to the hype region. A lot of people kind of are under the mindset that when North America plays at an international tournament, they're nothing but a hype team anyway. TSM is just a hype team. They're not going to win ever, but they're going to be hype if they do win something, right? Like, if North America or any, North American team of whatsoever goes to an international tournament and they lose, they get stomped, they get blown out, it's kind of expected. So people aren't really disappointed unless you supported that team. Like, you're a fan of that team. Then you're sad, but otherwise it's like, it's the expected outcome. It's only when they win that it's suddenly super hype. You see a lot of front page posts about it, and it's like all over the place for like 2 or 3 days. People are still talking about it for years later even, right? So maybe that's what the North American LCS is going to be. It's just going to be the hype region, right? It's going to be the region where they're not going to win internationally ever, but it's going to be very exciting as a viewer to be entertained to go and watch this region play, because they're just going to do a bunch of crazy stuff because they have a best of one again. I don't know for sure, and don't quote me on that. I don't, because like I said, once again, my word's not law, and what I'm saying is not 100% fact. This is just me kind of getting a collaborative, kind of a collective idea of what the pros and cons are about this conversation topic via Reddit, via some other people that have spoken out against this or for it, whatever the case is. I guess my conclusion would be, if pros came out like tomorrow and said they actually love best of ones better, and this won't hurt too much, and since it's better for the viewers, it's also better for us, I'd probably get off this kick. But since they haven't yet, that's why I'm saying it's a bit odd. Not bad, but odd. But that's the conclusion of this video. Now, for those who have been to my channel, whether it's your first time or this is the long time you've been here, my channel is a discussion channel. So by all means, in the comment section down below, feel free to discuss this now. Be able to discuss your opinion on it, your views on it. Do you think it's a good idea, a bad idea? Do you think this is going to hurt North America internationally? Do you think it's not that big of a deal at all? Do you think even if it does hurt them internationally, it's still better for viewership, and as such, it's still better anyway? Whatever your opinion is, feel free to talk about it in the comment section down below. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe as well. And if you want to talk about this somewhere else as well, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at @TheFireGoDieFS. I will be over there as well to discuss things. But that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching this video this far, if you did. But I don't know which video will be next, because life be quite a mess. So until next time, take care from the FireGoDieFS.